2, 1.
Good evening, everyone. This is High Point Mayor Pro Tem Michael Holmes calling to order our Monday, June 17th meeting of the High Point City Council. With me in chambers today are all members of council, minus our mayor, who is traveling on city business, and Councilman Tyrone Johnson. Our first item up, if I would invite you all to stand for a moment of silence, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next item up is the adoption of our agenda. Before we do that, I'll make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to add an agenda item related to the annual performance evaluations for our council's 3 appointed employees. At this point, I will make a motion to add this item to the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is seconded by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion on the motion?
Just, is that under the consent or general?
No, this is an additional item that's going onto our agenda before we adopt it tonight.
I'm asking, is it going, it's going?
It's going to go into general. It's going to go into general, yes. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That item is added to our agenda. And now, I will entertain a motion to adopt our agenda as amended.
Second.
All right, well,
Motion.
motion by Councilman Moore.
Second.
Second by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next up, we have a few recognitions and presentations. We'll begin with item 2024-257, Proclamation National Pollinator Week. And so we'll have Rebecca Coplin, Beautification Project Manager, if you would come down. So for everyone who doesn't really understand the role that pollinators play in our ecosystem, everything that we eat pretty much exists because of our pollinators. And so it's extremely important that we take every advantage that we can to attract them and keep them. I know you guys probably heard about the honeybee issue that we were having a few years ago, and they are part of our pollinator ecosystem. And so the work that we're doing here is part of continuing for us to have, the food supply that we have. And so the proclamation reads, whereas thanks to the more than 3,600 species of native bees in the United States, along with introduced honeybees, we have a very diverse dietary choices rich in fruit, nuts, and vegetables. And whereas bees and other pollinators have experienced population declines due to a combination of habitat loss, poor nutrition, pesticides, parasites, diseases, and climate change. And whereas pollinators provide significant environmental benefits that are necessary for maintaining healthy, diverse ecosystems in towns and cities. And whereas pollinators play a vital role for the trees and plants of our community, enhancing our quality of life and creating recreational and economic development opportunities. And whereas the City of High Point manages parks, public landscaping, and other public lands that include greenways and wildlife habitats. And whereas the City of High Point provides recommendations to developers and residents regarding landscaping to promote wise conservation stewardship, including the protection of pollinators and maintenance of their habitats. Therefore, be it resolved, on behalf of our Mayor Cyril Jefferson, Mayor of High Point, do by proclaim the week of June 17th through the 23rd, 2024, as our city's observance of National Pollinator Week. And we urge, as the city of High Point is a bee city, we do urge all citizens to recognize this observance. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. If we could get a picture. Thank you.
Thanks for reading all that.
Did you want to make any comments? Yes. Thank you. This next proclamation is in recognition of Juneteenth. I don't think there's anyone here to accept that, but I think this, I was fortunate enough to be able to speak at a Flag Day ceremony this past Saturday. And as I reflected there, I realized that we were in what I like to call our freedom stretch of the year. We had Memorial Day, where we recognized those who gave everything for our freedoms. We had Flag Day, where we recognized the enduring symbol of freedom that our flag represents. And we also have Juneteenth, where the final Americans who were enslaved received word of their freedom. And then we'll move into Independence Day in July. And so this stretch of the year holds a lot of significance when it comes to our democracy and our freedoms and all the things that we hold dear. And now that we've recognized Juneteenth as a federal holiday, it just symbolizes that every single person, regardless of race, creed, background, we live under the same flag. We have the same freedoms. We are protected by the same democracy. And so it's incumbent upon us to recognize the sacrifices that were made by enslaved people. And even though at the end of that time, 2.5 years later, their freedom was delayed, but thank God it wasn't denied. And so this proclamation reads, whereas Juneteenth National Freedom Day is the oldest African-American holiday observance in the United States, known as Emancipation Day, Emancipation Celebration, Freedom Day, and Juneteenth. Juneteenth National Freedom Day commemorates the survival due to the strength and determination of African Americans who were first brought to this country as slaves. Whereas Juneteenth commemorates June 19th, 1865, the day freedom was proclaimed to all slaves in the South by Union General Granger in Galveston, Texas, more than 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln. And whereas Americans of all types share in a common love of and respect for freedom and equal opportunity. Until all are free, none are free, is an often repeated maxim that can be used to highlight the significance of the end of the era of slavery in the United States. And whereas we recognize the significance of Juneteenth as an occasion to recognize this country's movement forward towards one America, advanced by a sincere dialogue of the realization of what Juneteenth historically means to all Americans, promoting racial healing, equal opportunity, and justice for all. Therefore, be it resolved on behalf of our Mayor, Cyril Jefferson, Mayor of High Point, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth Independence Day and the City of High Point, and encourage the community to participate in activities planned and commemorate this historical event. And for anyone who was in town this weekend, the city was electric. It really was. Our Juneteenth celebration was held for the first time downtown at our stadium. And I can tell you from speaking to a lot of people in the African American community, they never felt like that stadium belonged to them. And to see that stadium filled up with everyone in our community enjoying one of our hometown legends coming home, reconciling a lot of past grievances, it was a beautiful time for our city. And so we hope that in the future, as Juneteenth continues to grow, that it's not just the African American community that enjoys and understandings of what Juneteenth means in terms of freedom in our country, that we invite everyone to be a part of that. This is how our city is woven together. This is how our country is woven together. We're all part of the tapestry and the fabric of this nation. So Juneteenth is just another time for us to celebrate freedom in what I like to call freedom stretch of the year. So thank you all. And then finally, we have recognition of Bobby Fitzjohn Finance Services Director. So, Financial Services Director Bobby Fitz-John recently earned the Certified Public Finance Officer certification from the Government Finance Officers Association. The Certified Public Finance Officer Certification Program is designed to prepare individuals for leadership positions in local government by enhancing fundamental skills and increasing knowledge of best practices and standards in public finance. The program began in 1997 with the offering of 5 exams, each on different disciplines of public finance. It's a lot of tests, Bobby. There's 7 now. Oh, so you got in ahead of it. The program supports the core belief of Government Finance Officers Association, including ethics, leadership, competencies in various finance matters, and recognize members who have made the commitment to both obtain necessary knowledge and skills and remain current with the industry best practices. Mr. Fitz-John is one of only 8 finance officers in the state of North Carolina to attain the certification, and we recognize and congratulate Mr. Fitz-John here, Bobby, on this accomplishment. So if we could all just give Bobby a hand. So much of the things that we do around here in terms of moving our city runs through our finance office. And I know since I've come on council, I've emailed Bobby a bunch. I've probably pestered him on a bunch of things. He's always responsive. He's always has the answer. And if he doesn't have it right then, he's really quick to get it and turn it around and get information out to us. So he has really been invaluable in my edification of becoming a council member and a public servant. So Bobby, I want to congratulate you. You're a studious guy, and it shows in all these tests that you like to take. I hope you enjoyed it. That's great. Anything you want to say?
No, thank you all.
All right, great. Yeah. All right, next up, we will have our consent agenda. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Our consent agenda has been passed. All right, we are now on to our general business. We have item 2024-240, resolution of intent for annexation. We have Herb Shannon, Senior Planner, presenting.
Yeah, this is a request for City Council to set a public hearing date to consider this annexation request at your next July meeting.
Okay. So at this time, we entertain a motion to set public hearing.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Andrews. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by
For both of
Councilwoman
these
Cook.
requests or just the one? Are we doing them individually?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be individual requests. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. That public hearing is set. We have item 2024-241. That is also approval of a resolution of intent to establish a public hearing. I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries as well. All right, we have item 2024-242, consideration of budget amendment. We have Stephen Howrick, Budget and Evaluation Director.
Good evening. This item is requesting an appropriation of additional occupancy tax revenues that will be passed along to the High Point Convention and Visitors Bureau, Inc., also known as Visit High Point, and the High Point International Home Furnishings Market Authority Corporation, also known as the High Point Market Authority. The City of High Point passes through occupancy tax funds to these organizations. Based on revenues received to date and projections for the year end, we expect our revenues to exceed budget. The proposed budget amendment appropriates the additional revenues, which we will then pass along to these organizations. For Visit High Point, we expect an additional $50,000 in occupancy tax revenues, and for the High Point Market Authority, an additional $75,000. There's no net budget impact. This is additional revenue that comes to the city and then is passed along to these organizations. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have-
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I need to recuse myself for the Visit High Point vote because I'm on their board.
Thank you. Do we accept the motion for her recusal at this point? All right,
She's offered her recusal.
all right, do we,
I'm offering my recusal.
so Councilwoman Peters has offered her recusal for this item. Do we have a second? She's made a motion to offer her.
I'll second.
We got a second by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now I will entertain a motion for item 2024-242.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion for approval by Councilman Andrew. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilwoman McKeever. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right, we have item 2024-248, consideration of amendments to the Fair Housing Ordinance, and we have Jerron Hollis, Managing Director, presenting.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Jerron Hollis, Managing Director. The item that we have today is consider the amendment to the Fair Housing Ordinance. On May 16th, 2022, Council adopted the Human Relations Commission's recommendation that High Point become a fair housing assistance program and directed city staff to undertake the required steps for fair housing certification. In February of 2024, Council adopted the Fair Housing Ordinance. Staff advised at that time that as part of that certification process, HUD would review the ordinance for substantial equivalence, ensure that it provided the same rights and remedies as fair housing laws. In June of this year, HUD provided initial feedback on the ordinance and identified how the ordinance can be clarified for greater substantial equivalence. They have preliminarily requested some minor amendments to the ordinance as the next step of the FAP certification. This is the first reading of this ordinance, and the ask will be at the July council meeting to consider the amendment to the Fair Housing Ordinance. We've had a lot of support and help from our attorney's office, and I would entertain any questions at this time.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Hollis?
I do. So what are the minor amendments that we're talking about?
Well, the amendments that we had after the preliminary review were to correct internal references in two sections, Section 5 and Section 12, and to adjust formatting in one section, Section 9, and then in Sections 9, 10, 13, 21, and 25, there were small language clarifications such as fixing typos and more closely mirror federal housing laws in these sections. So at first review by the initial feedback from HUD, the ordinance that council adopted was pretty complete. These are some things leading to that legal review, that the official legal review by HUD, that were minor recommendations, suggestions to get it in line as best as we can as prior to that review.
Thank you.
And the full amendments are included in your agenda packet.
Yeah, I just didn't, I saw some mark-throughs, but I
Yep.
didn't see them all. So, they seem not necessarily technical, but just sort of clarifying.
Right, a lot of the language generally in the ordinance is directly from the Fair Housing Act, the
Yeah.
Federal Fair Housing Act. And so there's just some places where I think, as John said, it's just initial feedback. So this was an informal review that they did to take a look and provide initial feedback on if there was any tweaks that could be made or just minor clarifications. Some of it was technical with like indentions and punctuations to just further mirror the language in the Federal Fair Housing Act.
never really considered indentions a technical correction, but I stand corrected apparently.
Grammatical, maybe?
Well, speaking of grammar, is Councilman Andrew, when I read through it, section 432, that was a very long run-off sentence, and then there's some other technical things that I had questions on. Will there be opportunity to discuss it before we adopt it in the July city council meeting?
Yes, we're in receipt of your comments, and I think that staff has already taken a first stab at kind of responding to them. I'm going to take a look at them as well, and we'll respond to you with them. We're happy to give those to all of council if they'd like, and we can at any time, answer questions or meet. And then additionally, at the second reading, if there's any other discussion, this is kind of the data first introduction for you all to see what the amendment is. And then at the second reading, we're happy to answer kind of additional questions.
Very good, thank you.
Madam Attorney, if you could share those comments from Councilman Andrew with the rest of council, we'd be interested to see his findings.
Absolutely, will do.
Any other questions for Director Hollis at this time?
So point of clarification, HUD could come back after we make this thing to do their official review,
Yes.
not the informal one.
Yeah, this was the informal review that they offer. And then the amendment has to be made so that the ordinance is approved by council before we officially submit it.
Okay, got it.
So there will then be an official submission with the official review.
Yes, this is a process. Now, council passed this ordinance, as I stated. Now, these are the next steps in the refining process to certification. So it's a back and forth. HUD has the last say really on what they see as their substantial equivalent ordinance. So this is part of that process. So there is some back and forth like we talked about last time to expect, and hopefully this is the last time we'll have to do this.
But it may not be, so just to manage expectations. The feedback was very positive from the informal review.
Thank you, thank you. Madam Attorney, seeing that this is the first reading, there's no official action that we have to take
No,
here.
sir, information only.
Information only. All right, if there are no further questions for Director Hollis, we'll move on to our next item.
Thank you.
Absolutely. At this time, we have item 2024-249, consideration of reappointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Council is requested to confirm reappointments of Stephen Galante, Tom Kirkman, Mark Morgan to the Planning and Zoning Commissions with terms effective June 30th, 2024, and expiring on June 30th, 2027. I will entertain a motion for reappointment. We've got a motion by Councilwoman Peters, second by Councilman Moore. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have item 2024-250, consideration of an appointment and reappointment to the Citizens Advisory Council. Council was requested to confirm the appointment of Katie Nance to the Citizens Advisory Council, term effective immediately and expiring on May 31st, 2025, and confirm the reappointments of Orel Henry and Jessica Nguyen with both terms effective immediately and expiring on May 31st, 2026. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion. We got a motion by Councilman Andrew, second by Councilwoman Cook. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We have item 2024-251, consideration of a reappointment to the Piedmont Triad Airport Authority. City Council is requested to confirm a reappointment of William S. Bensini, former Mayor Bill Bensini, to the Piedmont Triad Airport Authority, term effective immediately and expiring April 20th, 2027. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have item 2024-253, consideration of reappointments to the Historic Preservation Commission. City Council is requested to confirm the reappointments of Janet Cantanilla and Mary Powell DeLille to the Historic Preservation Commission with terms effective June 30th, 2024, and expiring on June 30th, 2027. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
We have a motion by
Second.
Councilwoman Peters, second by Councilman Andrew. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Our final item of the night is our addition to the agenda. At this time, I will make a motion to approve the following changes and authorize the mayor to execute relevant documents to the city clerk's salary in an increase to $90,099.15, and her First Amendment to employment agreement, the city attorney's salary increased to $196,100, the city manager's salary increased to $263,294.96, and her Fourth Amendment to employment agreement. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilwoman Cook. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. That was the end of our agenda. Does anyone have any announcements or items that they would like to bring before the public tonight? Well, hearing none, guys, I just want to say this has been a pretty exciting 2 weeks for the city of High Point. Our All-American City designation, following by our inaugural R&B Soul Picnic, which was incredibly attended in our Juneteenth celebration. It was a really great, 12 days for the city. And so it just shows the potential that High Point has. It shows that we're a city on the rise. We've been recognized around the world since our Juneteenth celebration, and it just shows that when we pull together, our momentum is unstoppable. So thank you all for all your hard work and everything that you do in bringing our city's vision to fruition. So if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. There's a motion by Councilman Moore, second by Councilwoman Cook. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.